Greetings and welcome. We are in sophomore English, and our objective now for the hour is to make some introductory comments to Julius Caesar Act 3. I want to give you an overview, a schemata, if you will, that allows you to be able to look at what really is one of the more impressive single acts Shakespeare ever created. Earlier today, I was lecturing Hamlet Act 3, and I made the observation to my seniors in that lecture that Shakespeare really does create one of the most important single acts in all of dramatic performances in Hamlet Act 3. But I will say that JC is a close rival. Let's go ahead and give you a brief schemata. Act 3 of JC has 3 scenes. In those 3 scenes, we will see the following. 3-1, a murder. 3-2, 2 speeches. 3-3, chaos. I'd write it down that way, and I'll even say it again for those of you who now need this easy schemata, and it's an easy mnemonic. It's a way to remember the third act of this classic play. Now, to bring you to speed, and again, I'll go back over those in a second, but just to bring you to speed, this has ostensibly just been a play about an introduction to 2 people, namely Julius Caesar and Brutus. Now, there have been others involved. So, for example, if you'll think about it, Cassius helps us to understand a little bit better Brutus, right? Calpurnia helps us to understand a little bit better Caesar, right? So you have tangential kinds of characters that help us to have a better appreciation for these 2 characters. But really, all Shakespeare's done in Act 1 and Act 2 is introduce us to the 2 players that will ultimately, of course, meet in Act 3. Let's go over it again for our schemata. 3-1, simple. We're going to watch JC get jacked. And he will. He will find himself surrounded by his quote-unquote pals, who will then collectively stab him all at the same time. 3-2. Here in 3-2, we're going to see the 2 most famous speeches that Shakespeare ever wrote. Okay? And of those 2 speeches, the second, the one by Marc Anthony, will factor as the most classic speech that Shakespeare ever wrote. A speech that for many years, young school children were required to memorize. Okay, you actually had to memorize this speech. You can talk to your great-grandma, and she'll tell you, yes, in 7th grade, I had to memorize the Anthony speech and stand in front of the class and say it with some elocution, you see. It's a great study in rhetoric. Scene 3. The third scene is a brief scene that shows the aftermath. Namely, if you will, the chaos that's involved, okay, in what happens when the 2 speeches are given, all right? Let's go through it now with a bit more detail, shall we? 3-1. 3-1 will break up into 3 parts. What happens before the murder, what happens during the murder, and what happens after the murder. Now notice I'm using some fairly value-laden language. I call it murder. Normally, of course, it all depends on which side of the street I suppose you're standing on. Brutus doesn't see it as a murder. He sees it as a required action of assassination to save Rome. Right? We'll get to that in the second scene. In his defense, his apology, his defense of the assassination. But I'll go ahead and just call it what it is. You have events which transpire up to the killing of Caesar. Point for your notes. You're going to have moments of tension. Will they be discovered? Remember, you got opportunities for Caesar to actually discover that these guys are all about to jack him. One of the ways is he'll be given a letter written with the names of all the conspirators there. Okay? Caesar almost opens the letter. But then he will decide not to, because he says he wants to give his attentions, instead of towards himself, to others, to the Roman people. So you've got dramatic on-stage irony. The fact that he doesn't read the letter will be the reason that obviously he walks into the Capitol, and there will, of course, then be the next stage right before the murder, and that is, how are you going to get all these guys around him so that you can actually physically kill him? They're going to stab him over and over again, but they got to be close to him to do it. The way that they do it is to contrive a plea or a request. Please change your mind about this thing that he's done. His response will be no. Please, no. A third time, finally, Brutus, will you please change your mind? Caesar says, if I wasn't Caesar, speaking as he does in the third person, which irks a number of viewers. If I wasn't Caesar, I might change my mind. But I am as constant as the northern star. Dark irony. And that's when they all jack him. The murder itself, quickly it happens on stage. When you listen to it on audio, as you will, it really is about a 3 or 4 second deal. Now, if it's on stage and you've got good setup artists with all of the blood and everything, you can make this a pretty dramatic moment when lots and lots of stabbing happens. The one powerful moment we should point out is that right before Caesar dies, he will make an observation that Brutus is the last one to stab him. And of all the people who stab him or assassinate him, he's the one he's probably most shocked by is Brutus himself. For any of us that have ever been betrayed by someone who we thought we could trust, that level of betrayal, of course, is the most painful. If someone betrays you who you kind of didn't really know that well, you're probably not that shocked. But if your bestest of all friend turns around and stabs you in the back, oh yeah, stabs you in the back is a colloquial phrase we now use because of this play. This play invents that very phrase. To stab someone in the back, metaphorically speaking, is to do to whoever what Brutus does to Caesar. He will land the final blow. Part 3. After the murder, after the assassination. What do you do after the assassination? Well, you got several interesting moments that all seem to happen kind of at the same time. Right away, the conspirators have done it. It's like the plan worked. And there's this moment when they're almost like giddy about it. Like, yippee, we did it. And they start shouting about how great they have acted for Rome. Of course, Shakespeare has a problem, because what he wants to be able to do is to show the response by others, non-assassins, right? And then, of course, the assassins themselves. The assassins have been plotting this for weeks. They know what's coming. But everybody else is like, oh, dude, what are you doing? And so obviously you've got to account for that. Right away, the assassins do 2 things. 1, they shout language that immediately tries to validate what they did. They will in fact say as much. We have brought Rome freedom. Look at us, we're good guys. The second thing they do is a bit more unsettling. They will rub their hands in the blood of Caesar. And it is an on-stage kind of gross scene. I mean, it literally, you got to have the blood. They got to have something that looks red that they put all on their hands. It's sticky. It's blood, right? But now enters the next movement of this final part of Act 3, Scene 2. And that is Marc Anthony. Right away, they look for Anthony's gone. Then a servant will be reported to have said he left because he was afraid they were going to kill you too. Then Anthony is told, it's fine, you can come back. We want you here. And in a very pivotal moment, Anthony will show up. And he is deeply unsettled. Because he had no idea that he was going to, in some ways, he could be considered complicit. That is to say, people on the outside will see all these guys stab Caesar. What? Marc Anthony must have known about this. Marc Anthony didn't know about this. And so as he comes in, he himself is a little worried. Of course, physically, what would he be worried about? Right. In other words, if they kill the old man, they'll probably kill me too. So going on stage with those guys there is, of course, a kind of freaky moment for him. But wait a minute. Then there's the other side. The assassins themselves. They obviously are immediately worried about Anthony. Is he going to be a problem for us? Cassius had already said he's going to be a problem. Brutus had said he ain't going to be no problem. We'll take care of him by killing Caesar. He'll come onto our side. Anthony, let's point out, is misunderstood by the conspirators. They do not understand just who this guy is. They think of him as some kind of silly playboy who spends his nights partying, and he really is just, he's nobody to be feared. Anthony himself, though, is a good manipulator of a situation. He immediately recognizes he is in a situation he can use to his advantage. The way he does it is darkly ironic. He's going to lie. He's going to fool Brutus and the other conspirators. Notice the game Shakespeare's playing with the audience. In the same way that Brutus lies to Caesar and fools him so that he can jack him, Marc Anthony will lie to Brutus so that he can jack him. In other words, it's like a one-upsmanship, if you will. So what does he do? Well, he comes on stage, first of all, and he pretends, if not authentically, that he's upset. And of course, immediately, they're like, what's going on? This is smart for him, because then it makes him look like he's for reals. Secondly, though, he will say, all right, I need to hear from you why you did this. I want to know why you did this, because obviously you're a very honorable man. So I need you to give me a reason why. They all say, we will give you a reason why. And then Anthony is willing to shake their hands. He literally shakes every one of their hands, the guys who have blood on their hands. Now he does that for a purpose, because now they're going to trust him. He only makes one request. Here in a moment, Brutus says, we're going to go out onto the stage, and we're going to have to explain to the Roman people why we killed their king, or the guy they wanted to be king. We got to give a speech. Anthony says, I totally get it, and I'm happy you're going to do that. But here's what I ask. Will you let me, after you explain why you had to kill my pal, Caesar, will you let me at least talk about it? You know, like have a little kind of funeral speech for him. Are you cool with that? Brutus will say, sure, why not? I mean, really? Once we explain to the Roman people why we had to do this, and the Roman people all go, great idea. What can we fear from Marc Anthony? There won't be anything he could do or say. Anthony's like, sweet, I'm happy to hear it. Then everyone leaves, and we'll for a moment hear Anthony's real plan. His real plan is to use language to make sure that this situation falls in his favor. 3-2. In the second scene of Act 3, we then will have a brilliant moment of Shakespearean drama. The people are totally freaked out. That's the whole point of Act 1, Scene 1. Remember when all those people are like running up and down the streets and they're all like giddy and everything? People and their emotions move really easily, especially if they're uneducated and they're just kind of hearing rumors and the like. So when they see that Caesar and they hear that Caesar is dead, you have immediately chaos about to happen. Brutus will come to the stage and he will say, let me explain what happened. Two things. A, we did it. So there's no denying it. There's no like, geez, I don't know what happened. It's like somebody killed Caesar. We'll have to do an investigation and figure. No. Brutus comes to the stage and he says, I need to tell you two things. One, we just killed the greatest man in all of Rome. We killed him. All of us. We did it. See, our hands are red. That's the first thing he says. The second thing he says is, we didn't kill him for us. We didn't kill him. Brutus will say, I didn't kill him for me. I killed him for you. For the Roman people. And here's why. Caesar was dangerous. He was about to take over all of Rome. He was a dangerous guy. We took care of him, and we did it for you. Interestingly, the Roman people all go, yay, our hero. And just like that, they're ready to completely forget about Caesar, and they're ready to elect Brutus, the leader of Rome. Just like that. What was the line we quoted from Machiavelli's Prince? He who builds on the people. Right? The people are fickle, and their emotions are easily moved. And Brutus does give a pretty good speech, pretty smart speech, where he says, yeah, I did it, but I did it because of my love for you. He says, it's not that I loved Caesar less, it's that I loved Rome, the Roman people, more. To which the people all go, yeah, it makes sense, totally, yeah, totally. And they're all ready to leave. Dark irony. They're literally ready to walk away. Brutus has calmed them enough, he doesn't have to worry anymore about chaos. But Brutus then says, wait, where are you going? And they're all like, we're going back to our houses. No, don't go, Brutus, don't go. I want you to stay here, and I want you to listen to Marc Anthony. Marc Anthony's going to talk. We've asked him to talk. And they're all like, what's he got to say? Well, he just wants to talk about Caesar. Then, Brutus will leave the stage. He will not be there. Marc Anthony will come onto the stage, and he will give his speech. Speech number 2, Act 3, Scene 2. The second speech is the most compelling single speech Shakespeare ever wrote. The great president, 16th President Abraham Lincoln, memorized this speech and believed it to be one of the greatest examples of how to move people with rhetoric. R-H-E-T-O-R-I-C. Not so much what is said, but how it's said. Anthony's brilliant. He comes in front of the people and he basically says three things. One, I'm a really crummy speaker. That's the first thing he says. I'm not a good speaker like Brutus. And Brutus, he's an amazing, write down the word, honorable man. Anthony will use the word honorable over and over and over again to talk about Brutus and the conspirators. The first thing he says is, I'm not a very good speaker. I'm just not. I'm sorry. He will apologize. I wish I could be a better speaker, but I'm not. Number two, I want to tell you about Caesar. And he brings the body of Caesar up in front of them. And he starts talking about Caesar, but the sheet is over the dead body, over the corpse. And he says, you know, Caesar was, he could have been ambitious. I'll give him that, just like the cat said a few seconds ago. But you know, here's the thing about Caesar. He said, you offered him that crown. Like, dude, you offered him that crown like twice, and he did what?
Said no.
He said no. And then Anthony asks them, how do you define ambition? Is that ambitious? Is that ambition to you? Did he seem ambitious when he said no to the crown 2 times? And the people start to go, yeah, hey. And you begin to see a shift, right? And then all of a sudden, Anthony's ready for his third point. Caesar had a will. He left in his will information for all of you. I wonder if I should tell you what was in his will. And it's the point, right? All the people are like, tell us what's in the will. What's in the will? Anthony will play them along for a little while longer, and then he will say, well, Caesar was quite the guy. He was too ambitious. It's fairly clear. And he was a really selfish guy. Oh, and he takes out a piece of paper, unrolls it as if it's the will. And he says, oh yeah, it says here, every one of you got $10,000 cash each. That was what he was going to give to you. Wow, that seems like a pretty decent guy. Well, I guess he deserved to get killed, huh? And it's at that point, right? Anthony will say right after this speech that he has unleashed the dogs of hell. Right? In other words, Anthony wants to see Rome go up in smoke. Why? Because out of that power vacuum, he has ambition to rise. Notice the dark irony of Act 3 of JC. Now to finish my comments. The dark irony is that they killed Caesar because they were afraid he was too ambitious and could not be controlled. They kill Caesar, and in Caesar's place rises the most ambitious man imaginable, Marc Anthony. Follow the irony one more time. They kill Caesar because they're afraid of the chaos that could ensue. The chaos that ensues is best represented in Act 3, Scene 3. The people run through the streets looking for the conspirators. They will look to try to find one of the conspirators named Cinna. They walk up to a guy and they say, what's your name? They don't know him. He says, my name is Cinna. And they say, here's one of the conspirators, let's kill him. And Cinna's like, no, I'm not one of the conspirators. I'm a different Cinna. Too late. And they tear him apart. They tear him apart. They kill him. They kill him. Right then and there, they kill him. It is mob mentality that Marc Anthony has unloosed. We are told by the end of Act 3, Brutus, Cassius, and many of the rest of the conspirators have fled Rome. And Rome is in total chaos. Out of this chaos, Act 4 will rise Marc Anthony. Or, more interestingly, 3 leaders all vying for power, what we call the triumphant, tri meaning 3. We'll get to Act 4, of course, and we'll study the political implications, right? But what we want to point out as we get ready to listen on Thursday, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Right? On Thursday, when we get ready to listen to Act 3, we want to point out in this movement, a tripartite movement, what happens before the assassination, and then, of course, what happens after the assassination in the form of the two speeches. Thank you.